have Buccaneer football before you even have to have lunch. I mean, then you can enjoy the rest of the day in football.
Amazing.
So you get just the Buccaneers in the morning. That'll be a lot of fun. But it's a groundbreaking game because it's the first game ever to be played. The first NFL, even preseason, but the first regular season game ever to be played in Germany. It's a big step forward for the NFL, and Germany has a really solid NFL fan base already. I'm certain that 75,000 seat stadium is going to be packed. There's a lot of rabid NFL fans there, and it's fun to be the first team representing that. And it's a good game for Germany, for the German fans to get. It's in Munich, by the way. I don't know if I said that.
Yep.
The Buccaneers the last 2 years have won a Super Bowl. They tied for the best record in the league in the regular season last year. Tom Brady's still there, so it's obviously a marquee team for that game. And then the Seahawks, I know they didn't make the playoffs last year, but that was the first time in 4 years. They've pretty much been in the playoffs almost every year for the last 12 years. They moved on from Russell Wilson. They have some things to figure out, but I still think it's a very talented roster, and it's a team that's going to be fighting for a playoff spot. So it's a great matchup for the German fans to get a chance to see. And it's really exciting for the Bucs.
It really is. I can't wait. It's going to be so cool. And also, it kind of helps us know a couple things about the schedule, which we will find out the full schedule in a week.
Good call.
But we know now that game, and most likely it means that the bye week would be the next week.
Yes.
That usually they give you the bye week after an international game. So a couple little insights there potentially to the schedule. But of course, for everybody wanting to know the full schedule, 1 week from now we will know the entirety of the Buccaneers schedule. And of course, there's going to be a very fun schedule release video to go with it. Teaser alert.
Yes.
Always is.
That'll come out on a show at 8 o'clock, and that's when the Buccaneers will also post all that information. But at 6 o'clock, every team that night, that's next Thursday, every team is allowed to announce their first home game. So we'll get a little bit of information beforehand, too.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the draft information. We know that's been on everybody's minds for the last week or so. And, of course, for months we were talking about what we thought the Bucs would do. And now we can officially talk about these new additions to the roster. So first, let's go ahead and talk about their first pick that ended up happening a little later than anticipated.
Yeah, to me, that was my favorite part of the whole draft, that trade. We were all kind of hoping that would happen because I think it's pretty, they said so afterwards, but I think we feel pretty good about the accuracy of the information that at 27, the Bucs had 5 players on their list they felt pretty similarly about. And so if you can trade back and get some more assets out of that and still get one of those guys, it's the perfect outcome. And it was close, apparently. They said there were 4 of the 5 were gone, but I do think that Logan Hall, who we ended up taking, was one of the guys that was very much in consideration at number 27. So to move back, that's Rachaad White. To move back and get Logan Hall, the guy you might have taken at 27, you pick up the first pick in rounds 4 and 6, and then you end up using that 6th round pick to help the trade up in the second round. We'll be talking about Luke Goedeke in a minute, but also the 4th round pick became Cade Otton, a tight end from Washington that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Or if we would have gotten him, we might have had to trade up, or we wouldn't have got the next guy that we got it. So it was. I love the player. Casey Rogers, defensive line coach and run game coordinator on defense, said on Tuesday when some of the assistant coaches were speaking that he talked about his measurables, 6'3", I think we got a screenshot for it, but 6'6", 283 pounds, his speed, 4.88 in the 40-yard dash, his length. He said he's basically the prototype, exactly what you want in a 3-4, basically what you call an end. It's an interior lineman, but in 3-4 you call the nose tackle on 2 ends. And, he's just exactly what the Buccaneers would look for in that position. And he's productive, 6.5 sacks and 13.5 tackles for loss last year that got him first team all-conference honors.
Yeah, which, that's going to look really good, playing next to Vita Vea, Will Golston, and of course a lot of people have wondered what does this mean for whether or not the Bucs might re-sign Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
So what have you heard about that?
Well, I don't think it means anything. If the Buccaneers would still bring back Ndamukong Suh if both sides wanted that, and I don't know if we have evidence of that at this point, but it also does give you what you need in case you don't get Ndamukong Suh back.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, let's talk about the second pick. You kind of mentioned Luke Goedeke earlier, the guard. So what did you think of this pick, and were you was this what you expected in terms of the position, where in the draft that position was taken?
Well, it kind of speaks to the way a lot of mock drafters leading into the draft, or the actual draft, were giving the Buccaneers a guard like Zion Johnson or somebody in the first round. As it turns out, both of the guards that everybody always mocked to 27 were long gone by then. But I think the Buccaneers were able to do that anyway. They were able to hit that perceived need by getting a guy they can immediately put into competition with Aaron Stinney for the left guard spot. And that's exactly what the Buccaneers said as soon as the draft. I got the I got the privilege to talk to John Spytek. He came out of the draft room and gave me a little bit of update, told me about this guy, and he said right away he's going to be in competition with Aaron Stinney for the left guard spot. So that's good that you have that in no matter who wins that spot. That obviously greatly improves the depth. But the Buccaneers have pretty aptly, I think, filled the difficult need that was created when Alex Kappa left and Ali Marpet retired, and you lost both of your starting guards from what had been a very good offensive line. Now you know you have Shaq Mason locked in on one side, and you got really good competition from a couple players you like on the other side. So it's making me feel good about the offensive line going forward. He had a very good year at Central Michigan, where we got Sean Murphy Bunting from, so he enjoyed going back to that well. First team all conference as well. PFF, Pro Football Focus, really liked his run blocking last year, so that's good. And then, he played mostly tackle, but definitely projecting as guard in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got such an interesting story of, being a tight end originally in high school,
I know, right?
not recruited at all, walks on somewhere, plays tight end. Maybe I want to try this. Ends up at Central Michigan eventually to transition over to offensive line, and how much weight he had to gain.
Right.
He talked about he was eating like 7,000 calories
incredible.
a day, which I'm like, I don't know how you even.
No.
I mean, I take that back. If you give me a gallon of ice cream, I can probably manage it.
It probably wasn't
somehow
ice
I
cream,
don't
though.
think that's what he was doing. I don't think that would have been the best way to do it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch that whole battle in the interior of the line and how that shakes out. And then our third pick, Rachaad White, running back out of ASU. What did you think of this pick and what he could mean to this offense?
Well, I mean, he pretty much slots right into where Ronald Jones was. You lost Ronald Jones to free agency. Leonard Fournette re-signed, and for several years he's probably still your lead back. But this guy really is, I think, we all were sort of hoping they would find somebody that is a nice pass-catching back, so it could really be complementary to Leonard Fournette. And when we first drafted him, I saw 6'2", 210. I'm thinking, well, that's not exactly what I was expecting. You're thinking more of a out of the backfield guy to be like a smaller, quicker guy. But in fact, he's just a big running back, like Alvin Kamara type, who also is a very good pass catcher. So, and he can run between the tackles. He's probably a little bit better on outside zone runs and stuff like that. But he's got what John Spytek called a smooth slashing style. So I think he's a really nice compliment. I think he'll probably get a lot of play in our offense. You see there, he was very efficient. I don't think he got as much action as some of the lead backs around the league, around the college ranks. But per touch, I mean, 6.3 yards per carry, 10.6 yards per catch is fantastic for a running back.
Very efficient.
And I think he played only 15 games at Arizona State, but he averaged nearly 100 yards per game out of the backfield. So really an exciting another piece for a team. And what I like about all three of these picks, and a couple of the others too, is that even on a loaded roster that the Buccaneers obviously have, a roster that everybody thinks is going to compete for a Super Bowl again with Tom Brady back and a bunch of the other guys that we were able to re-sign and some guys that we added, I still think that the Buccaneers drafted players who can make an immediate impact if things go right. Logan Hall should definitely be playing a lot right from the get-go. Luke Gedeke could win the starting left guard spot. And Rachaad White, they should be able to work him in the offense right away.
That's pretty incredible, yeah, because I think we had talked about that of position of need, best player available, and that's kind of what you typically hear, but then what about the who can help us now?
Yeah.
Because of just where we know we are with Tom Brady and the Bucs overall, that was definitely a big factor as well. So those are the top three picks. So after that, what are some of the things that stand out to you about potentially the other picks and what they did in some of those later rounds that sometimes don't get as much attention, but we've seen that you can find some pretty big impact players there.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, so after the trade down in the first round, the Buccaneers ended up with the first pick in the second round and the first pick in the fourth round, which means they had the first pick on those 2 days of the draft. And when you're picking first on the second or third day, you and the other teams around the league have had a whole day practically to look at where they are, look at who they really want. Do we need to make a trade up? And the Buccaneers, I'm certain, got phone calls on both of those days, especially in the second round when none of the quarterbacks had been taken, and as it turned out, they all slipped to the third round. But I know they got calls for the second round pick. But in both cases, the Bucs stayed put because they really wanted the player that they had there, and they started the fourth round with Cade Otton. And I just wanted to point out here, I'm not bragging or anything, but in the mock draft I did in March, I think, where I picked all the Bucs rounds picks, I predicted Cade Otton in the fourth round.
Wow. Although usually if you start a sentence with "I'm not bragging, but," I think you are bragging a little bit. But you deserve it. That's impressive.
I'll tell you why I'm not bragging, because I don't want you to ask me any other questions about any of my other predictions.
Oh, right. Okay.
Let's just focus on the fact that I said
picked Cade Otton. Everything else is irrelevant.
And it wasn't the 106th pick because we didn't have that pick yet. It was 133. But but still,
we'll count it.
4th round.
Count it. That's incredible to predict anything after like the first 4 picks, and even that we saw a lot of people got the first pick wrong. So it shows that's pretty incredible.
All the mock drafts were just blown up this year. Nobody got much right.
So now you just need to prove that. Just tweet that out every now and then.
No, I can't, because then you'd have to again look at what else did you get right?
What else did you pick?
Pretty much, it's like I think Jason Light said about Luke Eddick. He said his hobbies are weightlifting and. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
So I got the Kate Otten pick right, and
that's about it. Yeah. That's pretty great. So what are some of the guys in particular that you think could potentially have an impact on this team after the first 3 picks? We always talk about that of are there chances for these late round guys to make the roster and maybe even make an impact?
Yeah, well, obviously, if you take a punter in the 4th round, you expect him to battle for the job. You're probably going to keep one punter. So you're expecting him probably to win the punting job. And if obviously your punter's going to make a big impact.
Right.
So they really liked him. They really liked him because he can do a lot. He has a big leg. Jake Camarda, we're talking about, from Georgia. He has a big leg, but he also has a lot of hang time. So he's good at like the pooch punts. He's good at angling punts. So they can do a lot of different things with him. And he's also, like Bradley Pinion, who's done a great job as their punter for years now, he's also a really good kickoff guy. And he can pretty much give you touchbacks at will. I think he had touchbacks on like 71 of his 106 kickoffs or something like that at Georgia. But he also is good at kind of mortar kicking. That's when you kind of kick it high, but have it come down shy of the goal line and hope that you're giving your cover team enough time to actually get the tackle inside the 20. So I think they feel really good about what he can do in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and then Keith Armstrong talked about the fact that he also is incredibly fast and played baseball and can throw, which was like, look at that. That all of a sudden Keith was throwing in the whole, maybe he'll do more than just punt for us, which of course I want to be like, Keith, stop saying that. We don't need people to know this.
Well, he ran a 4.56.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure people would have probably figured that out all on their own.
I like the fact that he can throw, though.
Yeah.
We don't do the fake punts very often.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. I think that would be a fun little part to throw in there on that. All right, well, we are going to get to some of your questions now. Okay, so Richard said, which pick do you think is the person we got with the best value? And he said, I like Zion McCollum, which I realized we didn't even talk about. Zion.
Yeah, that was the next pick in the Buccaneers actually. When they drafted Jake Camarda, the punter, in the late 4th round, at that point it looked like they weren't going to have anything to do for about 5 hours, because the next pick was late in the 7th round. But the Buccaneers saw Zion McCollum fall, and basically they look at their board and he's standing all alone. Like he's the last guy in the tier that they're in on cornerbacks. Like, this is worth the value of next year's 4th to jump back in here and get this guy in the 5th round. And honestly, from what I've read, most analysts thought he would have been drafted earlier, and it's basically because of his size-speed combination. He's kind of a unicorn. You just don't see a lot of guys with the speed that he has, like a 4.3 40, but also his size, his length, which is the type of cornerback that Todd Bowles loves in his defense. And he actually had a lot of production at Sam Houston State. Obviously, if you have production and these incredible measurables, you would expect him to go a lot higher. This is maybe a 1st or 2nd round corner, but it's the competition level that probably makes him fall a little bit. But yeah, really exciting prospect there. Probably has some work to do, in order to refine technique and things like that. But you're not asking him to step in day 1 and be a starter. Your best bet going into the season, your best case scenario is that he's your 4th corner, and that guy's probably going to be, as we've talked about before, that guy's probably going to be needed at some point. But that's good. I think you answered the question there on the value.
Okay. Yeah, that's what Richard had said was who he picked for it. So it sounds like
you we're all in agreement then.
Agree with him. All right, so Brenda asked what's going on with Gronk. So I think meaning also the fact that we drafted 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
So a similar question to what we talked about with what does Logan Hall mean for re-signing Sue. I'm sure 2 tight ends drafted. What does this mean with Gronk?
Again, I think even more strongly with Gronkowski, it doesn't really change anything. I think the Bucs want Gronkowski back. I think at some point Tom Brady's going to convince him to come back. He may already be convinced to come back. He's just working on his own timetable. I don't know anybody who looks at this situation and thinks he's not coming back. But, he's his own guy. Maybe he's sitting there and
enjoying life
and has no intention to come back. But I'm in the camp that believes he will return, which is great. Right away, you could see that 2 tight end sets with Gronkowski and Kate Otten, you'd probably get utilized quite a bit. Cade's a very good and willing blocker, and that's that's why he's a guy that they call a Y tight end that can line up in line, and not just a guy that, that's a receiver in a tight end's body. And he's a reliable set of hands. He's not as down the field talented and athletic as Rob Gronkowski, but he would make a very nice complement. Yeah, he'd make a very nice compliment to him. And then Keefe, the tight end taken in the 7th round, is essentially a really good blocker.
Okay.
And he loves it. He's apparently
very excited about it.
He likes blocking.
Yeah, which is unique.
I'm fine with blocking.
Yes, I'm good with that. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Buccaneers Insider Live presented by Miller Lite. Thanks as always for joining us and for those questions, and we'll see you next time.